Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to begin an awesome journey, taking you from staring at a completely blank screen to actually dictating the actions of physical hardware. Have you ever wondered how a microwave knows the exact microsecond to beep, or how pressing a tiny button magically brings a robotic arm to life? Well, it's definitely not magic. It's code. Specifically, it's embedded programming. And today, we're going to walk through a step-by-step beginner's tutorial to get you fully equipped and started. To keep things manageable, we're going to follow a clear roadmap today. We'll start with the bridge to hardware, look at the anatomy of the code, equip ourselves with the tools of the trade, learn to control time and hardware, and then wrap it all up with the final assembly.
All right, part one, the bridge to hardware.
When you're typing away on your laptop, it's pretty easy to forget what's actually happening behind the scenes. You are literally dictating physical actions for a microcontroller board. You're not just making an app that lives in the cloud or floats around on a desktop monitor. You're crafting specific, precise instructions that are going to be shot down a wire right into a physical silicon chip and used to manipulate electrical currents out there in the real world. That brings us to Embedded C. It's not just your everyday code. It's the industry standard bridge that puts you intimately close to the raw hardware. Think of it as a specialized, highly efficient subset of the standard C language built explicitly for microcontrollers. And the reason it's the industry standard, it offers absolutely blazing fast execution with practically zero system overhead. Plus, it's portable across different microcontroller families, and it hands you the keys to direct, low-level access to system memory and hardware registers. You are, quite literally, speaking the native language of the electronics. Moving right along to part two, anatomy of the code. We really need to demystify that intimidating blank page you get when you start a brand new project. Every embedded C program follows a standard structure. Honestly, it's best to think of it like a puzzle. The entire program is just a series of puzzle pieces interlocking together. You've got your simple statements, your data types, your variables, and your functions. You don't just sit down and write one massive, terrifying block of text. Instead, you build these small, perfectly manageable pieces that link up to form the actual brain of your hardware. Let's dive into part three, the tools of the trade. The crucial concept here is selecting the right container for your data. In embedded systems, memory is incredibly precious. You simply can't afford to waste it. So you have int for your standard signed integers, which takes up 16 or 32 bits. But what if you only need to store a quick status update or a single character? Well, you'd use a char, because that only costs you 8 bits of memory. Now, if you need exact precision, like you're measuring a very specific voltage, you'd step up to a 32-bit float. And unsigned, that's your best friend for non-negative integers when you don't want to waste a single bit on a plus or minus sign. Picking an 8-bit char instead of a 32-bit float just to read a simple switch might sound like a tiny detail, but it is exactly how you write truly efficient firmware. Okay, I absolutely have to emphasize this golden rule. You must always initialize your variables before you use them. For example, if you declare an unsigned integer called count, you need to actively set it to 0 right out of the gate. If you skip this step, your microcontroller might just grab whatever random leftover electrical noise happens to be sitting in that memory address. And in embedded systems, that immediately leads to undefined behavior and total hardware chaos. Which brings us to part 4, controlling time and hardware. With our data tools initialized and ready, we have to dictate the operational flow. And there's a stark difference between our loops here. A for loop is highly predictable. It relies on a fixed iteration count. So it's perfect if you need an LED to flash exactly 10 times, or if you're navigating a specific list of data. But a while loop? That acts more like a sentry guarding a gate. It runs continuously as long as a condition is true. In embedded programming, you are constantly going to use an infinite while loop to keep your device awake forever, endlessly polling to see if a button has been pressed or a sensor has been triggered. Sometimes you literally have to take control of time itself. Let's say you want an LED to blink. The microcontroller operates so incredibly fast that if you just told it to turn on and then immediately off, human eyes wouldn't even register the flicker. So we use loops to create a software delay. This literally pauses the hardware in its tracks, keeping the processor busy for a split second before it executes the next command. Now sure, dedicated hardware timers are preferred when you're writing professional production code, but software delay loops are an absolutely fantastic way for beginners to understand and generate these crucial timing gaps. And here we are at part 5, the final assembly. This is where everything builds to a climax and we actually read real-world data. But before we pull that sensor data, we need to organize our complex control logic into reusable blocks called functions. Think about it. Instead of typing out the raw instructions to toggle an LED pin and delay the timer every single time, you just write a single blink LED function and call it whenever you want. We also group our incoming data into arrays to store multiple values of the same type. Oh, and remember this little quirk. In C, array indexing conveniently always starts at 0.
All right, this is the ultimate payoff. We're using our initialized variables and our loop logic to pull raw data right out of the physical world. Imagine we are reading an analog sensor. First, we read the raw ADC, or analog to digital converter value. Next up, we apply the mathematical conversion factor. If we're running a 5-volt system with a 10-bit resolution, we just multiply our raw value by 5.0 divided by 1023. Finally, we take that result and store it in a float variable to give us the exact real-world voltage. Just like that, we translated raw electrical potential into a perfectly formatted, highly precise number.
We've covered a lot of ground today. You've seen the bridge from your laptop to the hardware, the basic code structure, the data tools, the loops, and the exact logic needed to capture a sensor reading. Hopefully, this explainer has completely demystified the process, leaving you empowered and really eager to write your very first line of hardware controlling code. So the only question left to ask is, now that you understand the building blocks, what real-world hardware are you going to control first? Start small, remember to initialize those variables, and have a blast coding.